Hello, this is AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming lunar eclipse at 11.5 degrees of Leo, which will be exact on January 31st at 8:27 a.m. East Coast time in the US, which is also New York time, or 5:27 a.m. Pacific time, which is also LA time. Now, once every 6 months, the sun, the moon, and the earth align precisely enough for an eclipse to take place. It's either a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, which is either a powerful full moon or a powerful new moon. And eclipses are always powerfully connected to the moon's nodes, and the moon's nodes represent our soul's journey. So the eclipses that happen twice a year are always connected to bringing more of a evolutionary energy to our soul's journey on a collective level and on an individualistic level. Now, this full moon is the first of 2 eclipses within the next 4 weeks. Eclipses usually come in pairs, and it's an extra powerful supermoon as well. So we have a lot going on with this lunar eclipse. Supermoons always occur when the moon is closest in distance to the earth in its orb. And so therefore the pulls of the moon, the electromagnetic pulls that we're feeling on the earth's plane are stronger when the moon is closer, but we're also feeling that more intensely on an emotional level as well. And so this means that there is a greater awareness around the issues that are connected to the full moon or new moon that the supermoon is connected to. So in this case, it's a full moon, right? Now, the other thing that's happening with this lunar eclipse is also that it's the second full moon of this calendar month. And so that's what we call in astrology a blue moon, because usually you only have one full moon per calendar month, but this one is a second one within 30 days. And so we can go ahead and call this a super blue moon, right? Because there's super blue moon lunar eclipse, basically. So given that this super blue moon lunar eclipse is happening in the Leo Aquarius polarity, there's an extra emphasis on increasing awareness of our mind's activities, which is connected to the Aquarius energy, and on opening our heart chakras, which is connected to the Leo energy. And as we do this, we can open more to joy and be more playful. And again, this happens on a collective level as well as on an individual level. Now, lunar eclipses generally direct our attention to our emotional body. So there's something going on an emotional level or within our relationships with other people that we need to become more aware of, or something that we need to learn to take to the next level. And so in this particular eclipse that focuses our relationship between the individual, which is the Leo, and the collective, which is the Aquarius. We become aware of what has been suppressed or ignored, being a North Node eclipse, because the moon is connected to the North Node, that means that we need to be embracing and integrating and exploring the Leo energy more fully. And we'll talk about that in great detail. But first, I just want to also mention that eclipses run in 19-year cycles. And so the last lunar eclipse that we experienced in that degree was on January 31st, 1999. And so what you can ask yourself is, what did I need to open my heart to back then in 1999? And what became more clear at that time in regards to exploring joy? Or what was I able to get in touch with in terms of my inner child, right? These are all Leo qualities, right? Now, this is the third lunar eclipse in a 23-month cycle of eclipses connected to the Leo Aquarius polarity. So the cycle started on sometime in February 2017, when we had a lunar eclipse in Leo last year, right? So that's when that cycle got started. And it will last until January 2019 is when we're also having the last lunar eclipse in Leo that's connected to that Leo Aquarius polarity in terms of the moon nodes, right? So think back to February of last year. What started shifting for me in my attitudes towards the collective or humanity? just check in with yourself. You know, like this whole 2017, you know, everything that we've experienced, you know, what has started to shift in your attitudes towards the collective or humanity? And what about like-minded people? You know, was there likewise a shift in my desire for more joy that you want to experience with others, right? In regards to your self-expression, did you want to feel more self-expressed with other people? In regards to heartfelt actions, you know, taking actions that come from the heart rather than from too much thinking, right? And so, as always, of course, all my questions from this video are also available on my website at astrologercoach.com via my weekly forecast. And I will be posting this particular weekly forecast on January 28th. So after that date, feel free to go to my website, astrologercoach.com, and just click on the weekly forecasts link. And then you can get to all the questions. And if you like, you can meditate on the question. You can journal on the questions. You can just have the questions in the back of your mind as you go through eclipse season and just see what comes up with these questions. And always feel free to use the questions that resonate most with you. You don't have to use all of them, just whatever kind of catches your instincts or your intuitiveness, and you want to kind of go with that, right? Now, back to the eclipses. If you think back to the last solar eclipse, which was in Leo on August 21st, 2017, I think we all can remember this eclipse since it was visible over the United States. So for those of us who live in the United States, most of us remember this. It was a big deal. So ask yourself, what has that brought? How has that brought the possibility for more joy into my life? So since the last eclipse in Leo, since August of 2017, what has brought the possibility for more joy into my life? So that's something to kind of sit with and ask yourself. And then, you know, definitely with eclipses always, life-changing revelations are more likely over the next 2 weeks, maybe even the next 4 weeks, because we have another eclipse coming after this one as well. And with those revelations, you know, there is going to be a shift in consciousness that we all will be experiencing in one way or another. And so the impact of an eclipse's energy usually lasts a lot longer than a regular full moon or a regular new moon, right? So when we have eclipses, they can last anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, depending on how long we are still in the same eclipse phase, right? Now, I will talk about the upcoming eclipses in more detail in my next forecasting forum. So if you want to know how the eclipses are going to impact you personally, then definitely feel free to join us. We will apply what's coming up with this lunar eclipse, but also with the next solar eclipse that's coming up in 2 weeks after the lunar eclipse. We will apply all of that to our own birth charts to see where these upgrades are happening, where these consciousness upgrades are taking place in our lives. And the forum will be live on Saturday, February 3rd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. London Time, and 11 a.m. Pacific Time. So whatever time zone you live in, you know, see if you're available. And if you can't join live, there's always going to be also a video presentation of the live event that you can also register for as well. Now, first, let's talk about the lunar eclipse in more detail. So this particular eclipse focuses on authentic self-expression and creativity. We're being asked to look at that for ourselves. Like, how are we dealing with that? Are we doing it? Are we not doing it, right? So ask yourself, what might open up if I expressed myself with my heart as my center, with more courage? If I were too much in my head, what would tip me off to that? And I think that's a really great question, because I think all of us can relate to that a little bit, right? Because, you know, just being born into Western society, you know, we tend to be in our heads quite a bit, right? So, you know, what if I were too much in my head? What would tip me off to that? I think that's a great question to journal on or meditate on. And what might my world look like if I allowed my light to shine just a little bit brighter, just a little bit, 5% more than I have been shining it previously, right? And again, with this kind of stuff, we can take baby steps, right? We don't have to go from 0 to 100. but it's good to just investigate that and see how can I shine my light just a little bit brighter in the world, right? And so we're also invited to allow head and heart to merge, right? So really bring, the energy up here more towards the energy here in our heart center, and to really bring about a brighter future for humankind by doing that. What would it look like if I allowed that to merge, if I let this come together? And what if I chose right here and now to contribute to humanity from a courageous, heart-centered, and authentic place? And I think that's a very powerful question, so you feel free to sit with that. You don't have to answer it right away. And then the last question is, what if I simply chose that right now? We can make choices in every moment of now. We don't have to think about it. We can actually just choose to move with an energy or to move with an intention in the here and now. And we can choose that every moment of now. So even if we're not doing it for a while, we can say, okay, I'm choosing it right now, right? And then we can do sort of like a reset, internal reset, right? Now, Leo represents our individual expression, the kind of light that we came here to shine, that the joy that we came to spread, right? That's why the sun sign that we have is very much connected to that spiritual journey of like, what are we here to express? What are we here to shine our light on, right? And for each person, that's a little bit different. Now, Leo is the sign of individual creativity as well, right? Whereas Aquarius represents the power of collaboration, where the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. So where we're really coming together, all individual pieces, all individual expressions come together and create something bigger, right? So Aquarius really connects us to the complex patterns formed by many coming together, right? And so this means that it's really, really important to be especially aware and responsible when we're connecting with other people, because the energy gets bigger, right? What we're putting out in a group of people is much bigger than what we're doing on an individual level. That's why it's so powerful, in either way. Sometimes it can be a good thing and sometimes it can be a bad thing when people come together in groups. Right? That's why that's so powerful. And also sometimes so scary, right? And so as best as you can, get present and ask yourself, what am I bringing forth? What is in my heart that longs to be expressed? And do I have the courage to stand in my authentic self-expression? Do I have the courage? Because it takes guts to say, I'm going to be expressing what's true to me, and I don't care what anybody else thinks about that. That takes courage, right? So it is important for us to get clear about, where are we having a hard time with that? And, in what small ways or small steps can we step more into that courage, right? And, maybe also look to see what are the people that inspire us, to give us permission to step more into our own courage, right? Because when other people inspire us to do that, we get to open up a little bit more in our heart space, and we get to step more into that as well, right? Now, if we want to see a great shift in the world at large, which is an Aquarian concern, we must each do our own part and express our unique gift, and that's our Leo part. Wherever we have Leo in our chart, that is where we need to express our unique gifts, right? And so that said, if we don't come from the heart, right? If we don't tap into that Leo energy, or if we get stuck in overthinking things or being overly concerned with what other people are thinking, then we will not be able to fulfill on a vision for a greater humanity, or for something that functions better, in the collective. So it's very important to take a look at where is our heart space, where are we at with that, right? So we need to definitely take more responsibility for that. Now, the moon in Leo is making a quincunx to Neptune in Pisces at the time of the lunar eclipse. So what does that mean? Now, this might bring some internal discomfort. We need to make some inner adjustments here because the energies are so different. Leo is a very extroverted energy, whereas Pisces is much more introverted. And so it nudges us to tune into our intuition and create from a place of love rather than fear. And so you want to ask yourself here, what if it were possible to get really in tune with my intuitive feeling body and express myself fully with courage and without compromise? So we want to bring together that intuitiveness with that sense of self-expression. That's more of an outward going energy, right? Because intuitiveness is more inward searching or looking, and self-expression is more outward moving, right? So, and then how can I transform lower vibrational feelings, right? Because when we get scared or when we feel like we're not connected internally, very quickly there can be this sense of lower vibrational feelings coming up. So for example, how might I transform fear into love? And what approach might support such a transformation? And so again, we just want to kind of like look within to kind of see like what helps me to be more loving with myself and with my environment rather than being fearful with myself and my environment, right? And what are some of the things that I can do or move with so that I can experience more of that, right? And so we have to really investigate, how we treat ourselves, how we move through our day, what impacts our happiness in a sense, right? Now the sun, which rules Leo, right, is also therefore a very important part of the chart, which it is anyways because it's part of the eclipse. But the sun is in Aquarius, conjoined the South Node and Venus. So this really reminds us that each one of us has an electromagnetic field and has like an integral part of a much larger field that it is connected to, right? So where our thoughts, for example, or our own personal growth or our actions that we take, they basically interweave with and affect all of humanity. It really affects the collective. Everything that we do, that we think, that we move with, all of our evolving that we're doing has an impact, right, on the greater energy out there. So together we are exponentially more powerful, because each part of us is creating a wave or is creating an impact, right? Now, Uranus, the modern ruler of Aquarius, right, is currently in Aries, and it's making a square to Pluto and Mercury in Capricorn. So this is very important because this is a big part of this lunar eclipse chart and what we're going to be experiencing. So we're really invited here to be more honest with ourselves and others. So especially when it comes to our fears and our desires, right? So anything that we're concerned about or scared about or anything that we want from life, from ourselves, right? And so we really need to pay attention to our thinking patterns, especially in regards to achieving things out there in the world. We need to check in and say, like, how is this supporting me, or how is it affecting me or my environment or the collective, right? And in fact, you could say that we're being invited to bring an innovative approach to who we are out there in the world and to our interactions with other people. So in other words, it's really important for us to step up and walk our unique path and take responsibility for doing that, and also what we think about that, right? And we want to inspire other people because life is so short. Each one of us has in terms, if we look at eternity, each life is like a blink of an eye. And we need to use that blink of an eye to the best of our ability that we can, and really make the most out of that so that we can say, I have contributed to the pool of energy that's out there. I have made a splotch, right, in the ocean of humanity. And, if we can do that, and if we can find something that we're fully passionate about, that we can fully express in our own uniqueness. And this looks different for every single person, right? This doesn't mean that we have to do, what society deems passionate or what society deems unique, right? It's not about that. It's really about checking in with yourself and go like, what do I feel passionate about? What do I feel is my unique contribution? And it doesn't have to be something where everybody goes, oh, wow, it doesn't have to be anything like that. But it's really about being honest about that and knowing what that is, right? So ask yourself, what is being radically transformed in my life right now? Where is that taking place? Where do I feel like there's a radical transformation taking place, right? Because we've been feeling this going on for several years already. This Uranus-Pluto square has been going on for a while, and planets keep moving over these points as well. So there's a there's a reignition of that energy that keeps happening over the past 4 or 5 years, right? Or longer. Actually, it's been going on since 2011 pretty much, right? So we've been feeling this for a long time, right? Now, where am I being invited to confront outdated thought forms? And this is something that's not always pleasant to experience, of course, because we get very identified with our own thought forms, with our thinking. So when we're being confronted with an outdated thought form, usually it's a little bit like, whoa, like, okay, I have to think this over again, right? And what does that mean in terms of how identified we are with our thinking, right? Because a lot of us are so identified with our thoughts that sometimes it's very hard to disconnect from our own thinking and say, well, this is just a thought that's coming up. This doesn't mean that that's me. It just means that that's something that I've been conditioned into, and that is a thought that's just arising in my consciousness right now. But how many of us really think that, right? So where am I being invited to confront outdated thought forms? And what's the relationship between my inner teenager and my inner adult, right? Because Uranus in Aries represents very much the inner teenager. And then Pluto in Capricorn very much represents more of an inner adult energy, right? Especially when we're dealing with it from a higher vibrational level, right? So, and not that the inner teenager or the inner adult is better or worse, right? They're both just archetypes and energies within us that most of us carry around, whether consciously or unconsciously, right? But it's important to understand the relationship that we have with these archetypes within ourselves, and that we know how we use them. And are we using them in a healthy way? Are we using them in an unconscious way where they come out in inappropriate ways, right? Or is it something that we're aware of and we're able to channel in a healthy way, right? Now, Pluto represents the courage it takes to face our shadows and fears, right? And so being in Capricorn, we want to have an adult approach we want to take responsibility when we are facing our shadows and fears. We want to do that well. Now, if we can do that, if we can face our shadows and fears, we can discover our true motivations, desires, and our true power. And that's really, a wonderful place to get to, right? So ask yourself here, what do I get obsessed about in my life, right? That's sort of like a place where we can start to look, where there may be some fear or some shadow present, right? And then what scares me the most when it comes to fully committing to things that I feel passionate about? Because, when it comes to fully committing to something we feel passionate about, some of us have this blockage of like, well, I can't really do that because, we have all the reasons that we have for, I can't do what I feel passionate about because it doesn't pay the bills. I can't do what I feel passionate about because, you know, my parents wouldn't approve, or, you know, my husband would leave me if I did. You know, like there's all these reasons that we make up for why we won't allow ourselves to really fully engage with what we feel passionate about, or to find something that we're engaging in and to find the passion in that, right? That we're already engaging with. You know, what's wrong with being passionate about, you know, making a meal, right? It can be little things, right? So we want to kind of take a look at that as well. So take a look at situations in your life that have felt disempowering, and at situations that evoke some sort of helpless fury, right? Because very often the reasons why we are scared or why we won't let ourselves move into a more authentic, passionate place is because we've experienced disempowerment in the past with people, with life situation, right? So when in the past have I given my power away to others, especially authority figures, right? And of course, this can start at a very young age, you know, like where we give our power away to a parent or to a teacher, right? Because we're told, you know, we're wrong and we believe it, right? And was that really about me? You know, when we did give our power away to those people or those situations in life, was that really connected to what was true to me? Or was it, you know, maybe it had something to do with the other person, maybe it had something to do with the circumstance, but we're really kind of internalizing it when we're making it about ourselves, right? We're taking it personally. So what did I choose at that moment? You know, think back to those moments where you've experienced this empowerment. What did you choose? What did you say to yourself in that moment? Did you say, oh, I better not do that again? You know, or, you know, I just hate all authority figures, you know? Like we're making, very often when we experience this empowerment, we tell ourselves something that helps us deal with what's occurring in that moment. But if we're making a blank statement like that, that stays with us for the rest of our lives, we're really limiting ourselves, and we keep disempowering ourselves over and over again because we're making this blanket statement, right? Now that's something to kind of investigate and kind of look at for ourselves, right? And again, you know, if that resonates with you, definitely, you know, journal on that. If not, you know, move on to something else, right? Now, Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius and is currently in its own sign, and we've talked about that in great detail since December already. But there's a really beautiful quote that I found that really fits very well with the Saturn in Capricorn energy, which you can read about in my Lunar Eclipse post via my weekly forecasts after January 28th on my website, right? So feel free to read that quote if you like. But if you want to know how Saturn's journey in Capricorn will impact you personally for the next 3 years, then definitely feel free to either purchase my 90+ minute webinar on the subject via my website, or you can also check out the 30-minute excerpt from that webinar where we talked about it a little bit on YouTube or also on my website. So whichever feels right to you, you know, feel free to take advantage of that. And, you know, with this lunar eclipse, with this full moon, we are definitely encouraged to acknowledge that we are all in this together. You know, Aquarius does, you know, represent the collective, right? And that each one of us has the ability to affect change by tapping into our courage and living our vision in every moment of now. And this takes dropping into our heart more fully, you know, to really keep being in touch with the heart, right? So for this full super blue moon lunar eclipse, which it is, we could ask ourselves, how might I learn about self-love, right? Very important. Self-love is always a good thing to learn about, right? What if I chose to love the world as if it was a reflection of my heart and soul, right? So if the world out there is really just a reflection of what goes on internally, then what if you chose to love the world as if it was a reflection of your heart and soul? I think that's a really beautiful question. What if I did that while expressing my unique soul self, my unique spirit, right? So really choosing to love the world while you're expressing your unique soul self and your unique spirit. What would that look like, right? So just kind of sit with that or journal on that. And where do the inner and outer experiences of love and connectedness meet? And that's a really beautiful question too, I think, right? Where do the inner and outer experience of love and connectedness meet? Nice philosophical question right there. Now, flexibility and thinking outside the box and self-care are definitely critical during eclipse season. So self-care in particular is important when there's times of stress or change, and eclipses usually bring about change. So you really want to make sure that you eat healthily, that you eat regularly, that you drink plenty of water, that you exercise, that you get plenty of rest. Especially rest is really important because eclipses can bring about sort of like that little bit insane energy of like, oh, I need to do this, you know. And so we definitely want to make sure we're resting enough and really also allow affection from friends, from family, from pets, you know, anything that you, or give affection to yourself if you can, you know. Because affection is so important in regards to feeling loved, feeling grounded. And that moon in Leo really needs that love, right? So connecting to what feels supportive in order to stay grounded and to regenerate ourselves as best as we can, as much as possible. That's going to be very, very helpful, right? So there are so many more aspects we could talk about with this lunar eclipse chart, but of course, it would take another hour and a half to do that, so I'm going to wrap it up. And we will be covering more about the eclipses during my next monthly forecasting forum on February 3rd at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. London time. So feel free to register for that on my website at astrologercoach.com. But this lunar eclipse really shows us that there is always work to be done, right? Because with all that energy that's moving about, you know, we're getting a sense that, you know, we are constantly evolving. We're constantly moving towards creating a better society, a collective that we feel good about, right? And each one of us is part of that creation, right? So there's no need to get overwhelmed by all of that, because of course the energy has been sped up, you know, since 2011 in that regard. But we have the power to do it. We have to really, get very conscious that each one of us can do this, you know, and all we have to do is look into our own heart and see the strength that's lying in there, because the heart is so much stronger than the mind. The mind is very feeble. It can be very feeble. It just jumps all over the place, and it gets panicky, and it gets kind of like, you know, it wants to figure everything out. And not to say that the mind is not useful, because it is a useful tool, and you know, if we can use it in a discerning way, it's important, right? But, you know, if we really look at the heart and we really see how strong we are internally, you know, that's where we really need to focus, right? So we can ask ourselves, where could I be the voice? You know, where could I be or become the visionary? And what if I accepted that I am the hero or the heroine of my own story? You know, that I have say over how that story goes, right? A lot of us give our power away by saying like, I don't have any influence over how my life is going, you know? And that is just not so, you know? I think that if we can shift that attitude into really becoming very clear about that I can choose my own story and how I want to respond to life, no matter what life is doing out there, right? And then also ask yourself, what is my role at this pivotal point in time? You know, because we certainly are in a time where everything's shifting and changing, right? Now remember that no effort is too small, no step is too modest, and most importantly of all, perhaps it's never too late to be the one who makes a difference. Doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter how often you've tried, you know, it's never too late to be the one who makes a difference, right? Especially when it comes from the heart and it feels authentic to you. This is not a mind activity, you know, it's really about tapping into your heart. And so as best as you can, you know, trust that you have what it takes to make a difference for yourself and others, right? Now, a final note about eclipses in general. There are consciousness upgrades, so 7 to 10 days before and after an eclipse takes place, we're usually in uncharted territory, so anything is really possible. So it's best for us to remain flexible and expect the unexpected. Anything brand new that started during this time will likely not pan out exactly the way that we thought it would. And I'm really emphasizing brand new, right? Because if you've been working through something for 10 months already or 12 months, you know, then sometimes actually eclipses are the times where we actually needing to move forward with something that's been in place for a long time already, right? So that will give it an extra jolt, in a sense, energetic jolt, if it's in alignment with soul purpose or with our soul journey, right? And so often the reason why something doesn't pan out when it's brand new during eclipse season is because there's a lot of information that can come to light after eclipse season is over. That's something that we're realizing because we're getting a consciousness upgrade. We're sort of like, you know, there's a lot going on internally and energetically speaking that we're not always aware of everything that we need to know, right? So for that reason, try to defer any major brand new projects until after February 25th, when this particular eclipse season ends. And that said, if something is beginning or ending in a way that seems really organic, then allow it to be, because if it's organic, then it is in alignment with your soul journey, and then it needs to happen in that moment in time. So you can definitely trust that. But you do want to be very wary of anything that seems pushy, or where you urge something, or where you kind of like, you know, force something to happen because you want to relieve your anxiety or impatience. That you want to be absolutely wary about, because that has nothing to do with alignment of your soul journey or your soul purpose, right? Now, allow for the upgrade to download, stay centered, and do your best to be grounded within. Try using conscious breathing. And in regards to flexibility, that's a wonderful tool to just keep tuning into being flexible about things and adaptable. And best of all, see if you can move to the observer position when it comes to the emotional and mental body, right? So whatever's showing up energetically speaking, emotionally, or thoughts that are bubbling up within you, you know, see if you can just observe it without needing to identify with it, without needing to make it about you or who you are, right? And again, that's a practice, you know, this is not something that you're going to be doing perfectly all the time, but just see if you can practice that, right? Now, if you do have an ascendant, career point, or personal planets in 6 to 17 degrees of Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, or Scorpio, then you will feel the impacts of that lunar eclipse more strongly. And with an eclipse, we're using a little bit of a wider orb than with a normal full moon or new moon, because the eclipse is more powerful and has more energy to it. So we're giving it, instead of 2 orbs, what I normally use, I give it 5 orbs, right? Just, I wanted to explain that. Now, even if you don't have personal planets in those degrees and signs, the house placement in your natal chart that's affected by this powerful lunar eclipse will indicate what areas of your life need your attention for this lunar cycle. And so take a look at 11.5 degrees of Leo and Aquarius in your birth chart to see what areas are most impacted for you. And if you don't have a birth chart, you know, feel free to watch my How to Read Your Birth Chart video. You can either watch that on YouTube or on my website, or you can email us at info@astrologercoach.com, and then we'll send you the recording if you write recording in the subject line with some handouts. And towards the end of that video, I do talk about how you can get a free visual of your birth chart online. And also what you will learn in that video is how to apply what I share in my videos and my weekly forecasts to your own birth chart, so you understand a little bit how things are impacting you personally. All right, now this is also a great video to watch before you join the monthly forecasting forum if you haven't joined us yet. So definitely watch that before joining. For those of you who are new to this, I want you to know that I created them so that I could support people out there who are curious about astrology and who love to, connect to themselves in a more authentic way and understand themselves a little bit more better. I wanted to create more support that is more useful than just the videos that I'm doing. And so I've created the monthly forecasting forums to get sort of like an interactive approach, and so that we can all look at our own birth charts and have a better idea of how to integrate that more with ourselves. And so this is really the next best thing besides getting a one-on-one reading with me, just that it's a lot more affordable. And so that's why I created these forums. And so if you want to take advantage of that format, which I highly recommend, then I would say, join us each month. Each month we talk about what's coming up within the next 4 weeks and how that's impacting us personally. We're looking at our own birth charts. And since we right now have 2 eclipses coming up, I want to encourage you to definitely join us so you can see how these powerful eclipses are going to impact you personally, because that's connected to our soul's journey, and that's really a wonderful way to jump in and start and to take a look at your own chart and see, where is this taking you? Where is this evolutionary energy taking you to? What next level are you being invited to go to, right? Now, the upcoming forum will be live on Saturday, February 3rd at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. London time, like I already mentioned. But if you can't join live, then there's definitely also an opportunity to get a video presentation of the live event within 24 hours of our live forum. And you can also ask questions in advance. So even if you can't join live, this would be valuable to get your questions answered about the eclipses, about what's coming up for you in regards to these eclipses. And all of this is still only $24 until the new website goes up, and it is a 90+ minute webinar. So we usually don't end exactly after 90 minutes, especially not when we're talking about 2 eclipses coming up. That can be a lot to talk about. So feel free to register right now at astrologercoach.com, and please also fill out the registration form as well as making your payment, because that form helps you to ask questions in advance, and also you can tell me if you want to be joining live or if you want to watch just the MP4 video presentation. All right, so I hope this makes sense. Please keep your questions connected to what we're covering each month. That way it serves everybody, and it's the most immediate that questions that you can get answered for yourself as well. So it is helpful. Now, again, all the questions from this video, they are available on my website at astrologercoach.com via my weekly forecast after January 28th. That's when I will be posting the weekly forecast. You can also get my newsletter if you want to sign up to receive my videos via email, special offers, announcements, anything else that I have to talk about. You can sign up for my newsletter by sending us an email to info@astrologercoach.com and just write newsletter in the subject line. All right. Now that's it for this video. There's a lot going on, so hopefully you guys can all watch this either in one go or in increments, however it works best for you. If you have any questions that are general questions for me, I'm always happy to answer those. But if there is anything personal, I will invite you to either book a reading with me or to join the monthly forecasting forum. And I hope that makes sense, so I can honor my time and make sure I can answer your questions fully and completely. So feel free to either book a reading or join the monthly forecasting forum if there are any questions. And if you have any general questions about astrology, then definitely email me and let me know what those are. All right? So have a good one. This is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.